Hello and welcome to my introduction to Maya tutorial. In this lesson we're actually going to go over the interface and some of the tools that you will most commonly use, as well as I will probably wind up throwing quite a few keyboard shortcuts at you, so you may want to grab some paper and write them down until you get used to using them. So I guess let's get right into it. If your window or if your view does not look like mine, there's probably a couple of things that are in your way. First off, these three buttons at the top right hand corner of the screen could have your attribute editor open, you could have tool properties open, or you could have the channel box open. So just kind of click on these three buttons to make sure those are shut. Once you got that done, go ahead and go up to Window and go to Saved Layouts and go over to 4View. Okay, what that'll do is it will bring you up into these four views that I have here. Now if you're new to Maya, or if you're new to 3D rendering or 3D modeling in general, what you've got here is a perspective view, which is kind of a 3D representation of the scene that you're going to model. You've got a top view, a front view, and a side view. These three they're called orthographic views. They're basically two-dimensional views of your scene. They're helpful to make sure that everything's lined up properly. You'll wind up using those a lot later. They're helpful when you're modeling, just to make sure that things line up, because you don't have any depth perception in a 3D world here like you do in real life. Important to note, there's a drop-down box up at the top left here, and we're going to be working primarily with the Polygons tab, or Polygons menu option here. What these do is they actually change the menus up top, so make sure you have that set to Polygons. You should see Mesh and Edit Mesh up top. Those will be a couple of the menus we'll use in later tutorials here. And then we have a bunch of shelf tabs. We're going to be working primarily out of the Polygons one, because I think they're easiest to model. Now on the tools here, we have a tool palette on the left hand side. There are four tools in particular you're going to be using the most, and there's keyboard shortcuts for them. We have the select tool used to select objects. The keyboard shortcut for that is going to be Q. The fourth button down is the move tool. It's the little cone with an arrow. The keyboard shortcut for that is W. The rotate tool for rotating objects, the keyboard shortcut is E, and the scale tool, which is the sixth button down, and the keyboard shortcut for that is R. I'm going to keep repeating these because they save you quite a bit of time going back and forth, switching tool to tool. I'll probably say them so much that you want to run me over with a car. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. So once you have the Polygon tab selected here out of your shelf, I'm just going to go ahead and make a sphere. So I'm going to click on the Polygon sphere, that first button in the shelf, and then you can create one in any of the four views. I'm just going to create this in the perspective view. I'm going to click and drag. Now yours may not look shaded right away. It may look like this. That's a wireframe mode. It's helpful for if you're using a lot of items, you can kind of see through and see what's going on. If you want to turn on a shaded mode, put your mouse over whichever viewport you want to shade and hit the number 5 on your keyboard. Number 4 will put it back into wireframe mode. Number 5 will make it shaded. So just make sure your mouse is over like the perspective view if you want to shade that one. Now, like I said, Q is for the select tool, so if I hit Q, it will put on the select tool so I can click and select things. Right now I actually want to move my sphere, so I can go over to my tool palette on the left hand side. I can click on the move tool, or I can hit W to put on the move tool. You'll know that an object's selected because it's highlighted with the green little frame here, and you'll know the move tool is on because it's got arrows to move it around. Now you'll see that when I do drag this around, it updates in the top and the front view, but it doesn't update in the side view, because essentially in the side view I'm looking at it from the side, so you can't tell that it's getting closer or farther away. But if I move it, grab the blue arrow and move it forward and backward, it doesn't, it updates in the other two. So if I want to center this directly on my origin point, or where there's two thick black lines cross, I can do that in the side view and in the top view. I just kind of line them up, so now I know that I'm in the center here. Again, E will put on the rotate tool. It doesn't do me a whole lot of good with a sphere just yet, but if I go ahead and put on the scale tool, you'll notice you again get 3 different colored handles. So I can squash it, I can stretch it by just grabbing these handles and dragging. Important to note about the scale tool is if you grab this little blue square in the middle and drag that back and forth, it will scale uniformly. It will scale on all 3 axes. Okay. So that's the basics of those tools. I know that's pretty fast, but you can go ahead and play around with these tools, the move, the rotate, the scale tool. And you can also go up into this shelf. These first 8 buttons are actually all shapes that you can make. So I mean, we can grab a cylinder and again drag it out on the grid. These you drag out to set the base, and then you let go of the mouse and you click and drag up and you'll set the height. So you can kind of play around with that. Sometimes easier if you want to work in, say, just the perspective view. You can tap the space bar. You put your mouse over the perspective view and you tap the space bar, and it will make that one the only screen, the only viewport that you see. In order to get back to the 4 view, you can tap the space bar again. It will take you back to the 4 view. And if you, say, put your mouse over the front view down here and tap the space bar, it will enlarge the front view. So that's kind of a little bit on how to navigate. I'm going to go ahead and hit W to put on my move tool, or you can go to this palette. I'm just going to drag it to center it in the front view. Why? Just because. I'll go ahead and hit the space bar again and put my mouse over the side view, hit the space bar, and center my cylinder in the side view. Okay. Hit the space bar again, go to my 4 view, and put the mouse over the perspective view, hit the space bar. Now, a couple more keyboard shortcuts here. The one that you'll probably use most often is if you hold down the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, you will, and use the left mouse button while holding the Alt key or Option key, you can rotate around in your perspective view, so you can kind of have a look and see what the scene looks like. If you're holding the Alt key and you click in the middle mouse button, which is typically the mouse wheel, you can just move the scene around so you can kind of see better what it is you're working on. And one that you probably won't use a whole lot, if you're holding Alt and you use the right mouse button, you can zoom in and out. Typically I will just use the scroll wheel, just like in pretty much any other application. If you don't hold any other buttons, you just roll the scroll wheel in and out, it will zoom in and out. So a recap: Alt and the left mouse button will rotate around your scene, Alt and the middle mouse button will move the scene around, and Alt and the right mouse button will zoom in and out. Or instead of Alt and the right mouse button, you can use the scroll wheel just by itself. So that's kind of helpful just in navigating around your scene that you'll be working on. And a couple other notes: you tap the spacebar to go from the 4 up view to the 1 view. If you hold the spacebar, it will bring up this huge context menu. We're not going to really get into that just yet. It's very useful. You can get to most of the menu options through it, but you kind of have to know what most of those do first. So we'll touch on that later. And if you don't like keyboard shortcuts, chances are you are going to have to get used to them, just because otherwise it will take very, very long to model a lot of things. But these 2 buttons below the tool palette will do single perspective view and a 4 view, so you can switch between them with the 2 buttons. And the only other thing that I want to point out right now is down here at the bottom in this little status bar where it says display short tips for tools and selections. If you don't know what something is, you can mouse over like the cylinder or whatever. You look at the bottom there, it says polygon cylinder, creates a polygonal cylinder. So that gives you a little bit of help if you need it. And that's about it. In the next lesson we'll actually work on modeling something with these shapes, and that will be that.